Picture this. It's October 1988. A guy in Minneapolis is standing in his kitchen with a glue gun. His daughter wants a toy frog. He's loaded up the glue gun with a homemade mixture of polyethylene and candle wax because, you know, that's what you do on the weekend, right? And he's squirting it out onto probably a piece of wax paper or something, layer by layer, building this frog up by hand. And then it hits him. What if a computer was driving the glue gun? Now that guy was Scott Crump. That weekend hack became the foundation for an entire industry. And every single FDM 3D printer on the planet today, from the $300 machine in your garage to a $250,000 industrial monster running peak at 400 to 500 Celsius, every single one is a direct descendant of that toy frog. And this is the story of how he did it. At Vision Miner, we've spent nearly a decade working with engineering polymers and the machines that print them. None of what we do, none of what anybody really in this industry does would exist without what Scott Crump and Stratasys built in that kitchen. Well, maybe it would, but let's be honest, they created this entire industry. So today, we're gonna walk through the full origin story of FDM 3D printing. Okay, so it's the late 1980s. You're an engineer, you're trying to get a prototype made, and it's frankly brutal. You're waiting 6 to 8 weeks, you're paying a machine shop to cut metal, build a fixture, run a sample, bend stuff, and by the time the part shows up at your door, your design in your head has already changed 3 times. That was Crump's world. He was a mechanical engineering graduate from Washington State University, or Wazoo, shout out Cougars, working at a small engineering firm in Minneapolis, and apparently he was sick of it. Now, additive manufacturing already did exist in 1988. Charles Hull, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting at AMUG back in 2018. Funny story, I was standing in line for the buffet at the NASCAR night. This lady standing in front of me, I said, "Hey, how long have you been in the industry?" And she was like, "Well, I'm not really, but my husband is." And I was like, "Oh yeah? What's he do?" "His name's Charles Hull." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Yeah, he invented SLA." I was like, "Oh, no way!" Very cool experience. But he filed his stereolithography patent in 1984. The SLA-1, the first commercial 3D printer of any kind, which shipped in 1987. Now, selective laser sintering, or SLS, was also being developed at the University of Texas around the same time. Both of those actually used lasers, and they both used pretty exotic feedstocks. So, you know, an SLA is photopolymer resins, like light-based, they harden and cure when you hit them with UV light or different light. And then powdered nylon, like super fine powder, not very common. It's not really the stuff that you see on store shelves. You know, nylon's been around for a while, used on a lot of stuff, but powdered is more rare, which are the regular thermoplastics are what most products are actually made out of, injection molding and a little bit of milling. So Crump sort of had a different idea. There was no laser, there was no powder, there's no big huge vat of resin. You actually just took a real engineering thermoplastic, same stuff you'd injection mold or mill, or you know, there's a lot of different ways of making products with it. But his idea was that you heat it up and you push it through a nozzle, and then you let a computer move that nozzle in 3 dimensions. That's it. That's FDM, or technically FFF. Fused filament fabrication, right? FDM is the term that Stratasys actually trademarked for fused deposition modeling. FFF is the term that we all have to use because it's trademarked, but it's the exact same process either way. So Crump actually went ahead and liquidated family assets to raise about $264,000, and then he sold a 35% stake for another $1.2 million in venture capital. He then spent about 10 grand of it on plotting equipment and modified a 2-axis plotter, and within a year he had a working prototype. Now there's some stuff about the IBM division that comes a little bit later, and we may get into that in a future video, so hit the like or leave a comment below if you want to hear more about that sort of side of the history. But then we come to October 30th, 1989. He files US patent 5121329. And here's what's remarkable about that patent. It's very broad. Crump and his lawyers, back in 1989, saw almost everything that FDM would become before pretty much anybody else did. The claims basically cover any material that adheres to the previous layer once it solidifies. Thermoplastic, wax, metal, molten metal, foaming plastic, glass, you name it, pretty much everything. So in the same year, Crump and his wife Lisa incorporated Stratasys in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. She's a co-founder. She runs early commercialization. This is a family operation in the early days. Now the first commercial machine, the 3D modeler, ships in April of 1992. The price tag is $130,000. 92, how much was that? That was a lot more, leave it in the comments. Now, they sold 5 units in the first 3 years. I mean, this is taking some time. Perseverance is a big thing. Some of those early prototypes were actually cobbled together from chrome auto parts and vacuum cleaner tubing. That's how scrappy it was way back in the day. But the technology worked, and word started to spread. Now, the 22 IDEX that we sell here at Vision Miner, that we manufacture ourselves, it's open material, it's high temperature, it's basically an oven inside for the things like Ultem and Peak and stuff like that. But it exists, literally, because Scott Crump invented the entire process. Every single FDM machine on Earth, ours included, traces back to his patent. We owe him, and Stratasys, like a huge amount of credit. Hold that thought, hold that. We're gonna come back to that. So let's talk about the industrial era real quick. Throughout the 90s, Stratasys is basically just sitting there just grinding. They go public on the NASDAQ in October of 1994. By 1996, sales are at 26 million. By 2007, they're shipping 44% of all additive systems installed worldwide. But the real shift comes when they start qualifying real engineering polymers. ABS first, then polycarbonate, and then PPSF, and then the one that changed everything. Ultem 9085, a polyethylamide originally developed by General Electric, now part of SABIC, that Stratasys validates for FDM production. And validates is a huge thing. It means basically that Stratasys engineers spent years dialing in every single parameter: extrusion temperature, chamber temperature, layer adhesion, mechanical properties when printed. And they built a quality assured supply chain around it. And that's what turns raw industrial polymer into something that an aerospace OEM can certify and put on an airplane. Now, Ultem 9085 is flame retardant, and it's UL94 V0 rated. That means it meets the same flame, smoke, and toxicity, or FST standards, that aerospace industry has already certified for injection molding and other processes. So this is huge, because suddenly FDM wasn't a prototyping tool anymore. It's making flight parts, cabin components on commercial aircraft, ducting, brackets, production tooling at Boeing, Airbus, across the entire aerospace supply chain. The machines that are printing those parts, the Fortis line, the 450, and eventually the F900, those are still the gold standard in aerospace today. You can walk into qualified production environments in virtually every major airframer, and you will see Stratasys machines on that shop floor. Now, that didn't happen by accident. Stratasys spent 2 decades building the trust, the certifications, the documentation, the validated material chains. They earned that position. Now, there's another moment that deserves some recognition. In February of 2002, Stratasys launches the Dimension, starting at $29,900. The first FDM machine designed for an office environment. Compact, I mean, it's still pretty huge by today's standards, but it was pretty compact for the time. It was networkable. It was engineered for somebody who wasn't a specialist machinist. By 2003, FDM becomes the best-selling rapid prototyping technology in the world. The Dimension is the machine that took FDM from a specialist engineering tool and put it in the hands of a much wider audience. A lot of the engineers running 3D printing programs at Fortune 500 companies today, their first machine was a Dimension. That platform pretty much raised an entire generation. Okay, so next, we're going to talk about when the patent expired and how the ecosystem exploded. October 30th, 2009, 20 years to the day after Crump filed his patent. That patent enters the public domain. Now this is when the broader ecosystem really started to flourish. Adrian Boyer's RepRap project, which we still use firmware for RepRap firmware in the 22. It actually been building self-replicating printers for 2 years. Using parts printed on Stratasys dimensions, it accelerates massively. MakerBot launches in Brooklyn, Ultimaker in the Netherlands, Prusa Research in Prague, Clipper firmware, Boron, Core XY, Bamboo Lab. Every single one of those, every $300 desktop printer, every open source slicer, every weekend project running PLA in a garage exists because Scott Crump filed that patent back in 1989 and brought it to the market through Stratasys and proved to the world that you could build a real business extruding plastic from a computer-controlled nozzle. Now, before he proved it, this whole industry was just a thought experiment. After he proved it, it became inevitable. So we've got some more videos planned that go deeper on specific chapters of this story. How the desktop market actually exploded after 2009, the full materials climb from ABS all the way up to peak, and how FDM earned its place in aerospace. And even what's happening right now with Bamboo Lab, the speed revolution, the lawsuit that Stratasys filed against them in 2024, all of those deserve their own breakdown, and we've got those videos coming. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those, and hit the like on this video because it tells the algorithm that you want to see more videos like this one. I'll give you a second. It's somewhere, or if you're on a TV, there's a menu or something. Here at Vision Miner, we sit at the modern end of this story. Our own 22 IDEX runs pure, unmodified PEEK, Ultem, polycarbonate, carbon fiber nylon, you name it, 500 Celsius hot ends, 100 Celsius heated chamber, open material, all for under 15 grand. For the larger parts and big stuff for aerospace companies, we resell some other much larger machines as well, with the same philosophy, just scaled up. We get to do what we do because Scott Crump stood in his kitchen with a glue gun in 1988, I was like 3 months old at the time, and then spent the next 30 plus years building Stratasys into the company that proved that this whole industry was even possible. Now, every machine on our shop floor is the descendant of that toy frog. So head over to visionminer.com, check out the full machine lineup, FDM, SLA, SLS, including our own 22. We even got 3D scanners and really cool stuff, and our entire engineering polymer catalog from Ultem to PEEK to polycarbonate to PEC to PAEK to CF nylons of all kinds. Mostly we specialize in the metal replacement plastics that make real strong parts for aerospace, medical, oil and gas, energy, all that stuff. But give us a call, shoot us an email. We're here to literally help you and your business figure this out and take it to the next level. So stay tuned, there's more of this story coming. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a positive rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.